You're listening to Soap Dirt, the latest in television entertainment news.
Hey, Days of Our Lives fans. So next week, EJ DiMera gets a very unwelcome surprise. A very bad person is coming back to Salem who is tied to one of EJ's worst sins of his past and is poised to wreck his life. It's Belinda from Soap Dirt, and if you are not following us, please subscribe. So this week, EJ's having a little bit of a rough go. He was so smug with Mark Greene trying to force the doctor to sign a plea deal for 10 years in prison. But then Belle Black swooped in and just burned down EJ's day. Belle reminded him that Salem's DA has no jurisdiction on a murder attempt in Paris. The only crime Mark really did in Salem was tampering with a couple of paternity tests. And as Belle reminded EJ, if that crime was punished, half of Salem would be in prison. Now, maybe EJ has a particular grudge against paternity tests because Nicole Walker faked one with him and Sammy Brady pulled a fake ultrasound on him. But in the end, Belle thwarted EJ with this Mark thing, and he's mad. So next week, he tries to get Kristen to fire Belle. I doubt she will, unless EJ's got something good to offer to his sister Kristen. And then it's the day after that, Christmas Eve, Tuesday, December 24th, that an old acquaintance drops in to see EJ. That's an official Days spoiler straight from the PR office that sends us stuff. And by the way, you know, this is not some old friend. Not that EJ really has any friends, right? But this is a villain he's worked with before. So he's going to pressure EJ into letting him stay at the mansion. This should be a very miserable Christmas for Johnny DiMera's dad. Not only that, but this guy that drops in on EJ is not someone he'll want around his son and daughter-in-law, Chanel Dupree. If you didn't know already, terrible, horrible Arnold Fenger is coming back to Salem. That is confirmed. You might know him by one of his other names, Fake Rafe, or as they called him back then, Fafe. This was like 2011. Imposter Rafe was another name, and Sammy Brady called him the Creature. So this creep is coming back to Days of Our Lives, and I presume this is who is coming to see EJ next week because there's nothing else in the pipeline but this. So last we heard on Days, Arnold was dead. It looks like Ron Carlivati decided to do another resurrection. You know, he could have resurrected Abigail, but no, we get this guy. And it's just creepy. And I don't know what this fascination is with Days of Our Lives and rapists and rape stories, but we're getting more of that ick. If you forgot him, Arnold was this kind of low-level criminal that EJ and Stefano talked into getting plastic surgery to look like Rafe. And once he looked like him, then EJ and his dad taught that creepy guy some Brady and Hernandez history so he could pull off a con. And this was back when Sammy was married to Rafe, and he had a car accident. And while he was hospitalized, the DiMeras swapped Arnold in for Rafe, who they stashed out of the way. Rafe was having memory problems because of the accident. And then Fake Rafe, you know, who didn't know everything perfectly that was going on in their lives, was kind of plausible to Sammy because Rafe had been in this car accident. So the whole Fake Rafe thing was he was trying to rip their family apart, acting like a jerk. He was terrible to Sammy and her kids. He was deliberately trying to burn down the marriage of Sammy and real Rafe. And this guy also murdered Nicole Walker's mom because she overheard him plotting with Stefano and EJ. And in the end, Arnold was found out, and he worked out a deal to get witness protection and immunity from prosecution if he would testify against Stefano and EJ. But there were some criminals in like the holding pen of the Salem jail that mistook Arnold for his lookalike Rafe, who was in law enforcement, and they beat him to death. So Galen Gering played both roles on Days from January to June of 2011. So it's been a minute since EJ and Stefano brought this guy around, and then he died. And as far as anyone knew, you know, pushing up daisies. So the big question, of course, is how he survived. The most obvious way to explain Arnold's survival is that maybe EJ and Stefano faked his death. I mean, him being dead or fake dead, either one worked out for EJ and his dastardly daddy because they didn't want him to testify. But I could see a retcon where they were involved and, you know, maybe Arnold had some blackmail material stashed that would come out if he really died. And if they let him go, then, you know, he wouldn't have it auto send. It's convoluted something, you know. Who even knows? Because Dr. Rolfe is also a possibility where the DiMeras are concerned. Maybe they had him resurrected and, somewhere in case they wanted to use him again later. I mean, it'll have to be clever, I guess, because the only people to benefit from Arnold's death were Stefano and EJ. Everybody else wanted the guy alive, testifying, and then in witness protection so they could take down EJ and Stefano. Sammy wanted him put away, so did the real Rafe. Hope and Brady did. So no matter how they explain it, Arnold is back from the dead and he's in town to cause problems for EJ. What's also interesting is the timing. If you remember, Rafe recently got engaged to Jada Hunter, and the same day next week that EJ is struggling to deal with this unwanted house guest, that's when Jada and Rafe set their wedding date. And I just wonder if this weirdo Fake Rafe is going to try and take over his life again, this time with Jada instead of Sammy. And speaking of EJ's ex-wife, Alison Sweeney taped a return arc, and she filmed for a little while back in early August 2024. And, days filmed 6 to 8 months ahead. So that has Sammy back in Salem somewhere between February and April 2025. And Fake Rafe is part of her comeback. Johnny finds out exactly who this creep Arnold is and that he took advantage of his mom, and he tells Roman that the guy is a rapist. So Arnold was sleeping with Sammy without her consent because she thought he was really her husband Rafe, and Roman then turns around and tells Johnny something he didn't know, that EJ DiMera is the same type of rapist, worst even, really, and he also took advantage of Sammy. EJ didn't beat and brutally attack Sammy and drag her off behind a bush and do bad things to her and assault her, but he did blackmail her into non-consensual sex to save Lucas Horton's life. And Johnny's disgusted when he finds out, because that's his origin story. That's how she got pregnant with him. Not only that, but EJ is the one behind Sammy being continually assaulted without her knowledge by Arnold, this Fake Rafe guy that EJ is now letting move into his house. And Johnny's going to be appalled that basically two rapists were under the same roof with his beloved wife, Chanel. This is a potential relationship ender between EJ and his son, Johnny, who is totally disgusted when he finds out what EJ did to his mom, Sammy, not once, but twice, once by him, once by Fake Rafe. And of course, there's the distinct possibility that while EJ is sheltering this creep who's back from the dead, that Arnold may target somebody else in Salem, maybe Jada. I mean, who even knows what this guy is capable of? And all of it ties back to EJ's deplorable past. Plus, not long after Fake Rafe rolls into town, EJ gets involved with Sammy's little sister, Belle Black, which complicates things even more. So watch very closely next week to watch EJ get this truly horrible blast from the past in case he had forgotten just what a bad guy he is. Arnold's going to remind EJ. And I don't know how long he's going to be able to hang on to his DA job once it all comes out.
Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Soap Dirt is on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.